Hello, COBRA community. This month we had a COBRA community circle, which took place on April 16th at 7 p.m. And the theme for this month was on executive functioning. My name is Dr. Colleen Evans. I am the Dean of Students here at Cooper Middle School in District 21. And I just wanted to go through a brief presentation of what was covered regarding executive functioning skills and how that affects students currently, specifically at the middle school level. So we want to think of our brain as like an air traffic controller, or another analogy is the conductor of an orchestra. It's really the different signals that are telling us what to think, how to feel, and then putting things into action. And so we know based on research is that we have what's called a prefrontal cortex, that the front part of your brain, and that is developed from preschool through about your mid 20s. And so students who are in this sixth, seventh, and eighth grade kind of middle school time, their prefrontal cortex is still developing. And that executive functioning skills are part of that development. There are some more specific challenges with those who have ADHD, autism, or neurodiversity. But you might be asking, well, what exactly is executive functioning? I like to think of it as three specific areas. There's the first one, the working memory. So students that have a really hard time with executive functioning skills and the working memory might find that it's really difficult to follow sequential practical instructions. They might have some difficulties around sequencing activities or forgetting information. This is way different than us forgetting that gallon of milk at the grocery store because we are so consumed, and there's so much coming at us all the time. This is a little bit more about the patterns that students are regularly forgetting even when the directions are being explicit. The next area is the cognitive flexibility. This is more about others and peers. So, not accepting others' ideas or being more rigid in thinking, and then becoming very easily frustrated when things go a different way. Another area is trouble with transitions. And we noticed that in middle school, having that 3 minute passing period, for example, can be problematic as it's not a lot of time to get from one area of the building to the next. But the biggest problem is stopping in the locker and balancing some of those maybe peer interactions and remembering to get all the materials that you need for your next class. So it's like thinking ahead. And then the last one is your inhibitory control. So this would be more like blurting out, interrupting, having a really hard time taking turns. So when we think of executive functioning, one thing we did at our COBRA circle was we came up with a problem solving scenario. And I asked parents and family members what would happen if this was your student. So let's say the scenario is that your child has been arriving late to school. School starts at 8 a.m. every day here at Cooper. And this is kind of the breakdown. So the student wakes up between 7 and 7:20 a.m. They do not eat breakfast at home, but they are responsible for taking the dog out every morning. They do also take a shower, and it takes about approximately 10 minutes to walk to school. So what we did was we used this tool and we created like basically a to-do list, but we did it backwards. So this is backwards planning. And this is to really help the student that we used in this scenario to get to school on time. So the first is, what do I need to get ready? Maybe this is laying out clothes the night before. Maybe it's remembering that my Chromebook is being charged somewhere else, and so it's accessible for me to grab. Maybe it's having my PE uniform already in my backpack. Perhaps picking out my outfit so I know what I'm wearing. Those are all things that are kind of like your pre-work, how you can do that the night before. The next is the do. So what steps do I need to take to be done? And even more specifically, how long is each step going to take? So if you remember from the scenario, this student was responsible for taking out the dog. Well, how long does it take to take the dog out? It could differ every single day. So you need to create a little bit of a buffer. It could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And then lastly, what will it look like when I am done? Well, that means arriving to school on time. So when we kind of break this down and we think about arriving at school at 8 o'clock is the expectation, that means you need to be in your first class, in your seat by 8 a.m., which really means you probably need to arrive at school at 7:55 at the latest so you can stop at your locker, get all your materials, and get to your first class, which also means then you need to leave your house by 7:45 because it's a 10-minute walk. It also means to take out the dog, which could take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, that you need to take out the dog no later than 7:35. Then remember, the student takes a shower every morning. That's another 5 to 10 minutes. So that's 7:25. So as we start working backwards, we see that the student cannot wake up at 7:20 because that will automatically set the student up to not be successful. More specifically, we like to talk about these kind of domains of how do you organize your space, how much time is available, and then how are you going to prioritize this or actually envision it? What is it going to actually look like? So we use something like this template with students to really backtrack and think backwards. It's a great visual representation. Another thing that is useful is a problem-solving map. As students in middle school are becoming more independent, we as parents and family members can give suggestions, but really they need to become more independent in their thinking. So this is a great simple way of saying, okay, well, what is the problem? Not getting to school on time. Let's have the student create 3 different solutions, solution 1, 2, and 3, as well as 3 possible consequences for each solution. And then the biggest piece is to be able to go back and reflect on this map to see which solution is probably the most efficient. So struggles that we see students having that are pretty typical, especially at this age, especially because we're thinking about that prefrontal cortex and that it's not fully developed, is managing time and materials, maybe judging the amount of time that they have, paying attention, following multi-step instructions, shifting between priorities or that transitioning, and then starting and completing tasks without an adult prompting them. So that's really gaining that independence to be more highly motivated. So lastly, we went over some strategies. So I'm just going to go through these very briefly. But if you do have more questions, you can always contact me here and I would be happy to give more information. The first is the use of calendars. It's a great tool for students to have, whether they're hanging up somewhere, maybe they're on a desk, maybe they're hanging on a wall, maybe they're a digital calendar on a phone, but actually having something physical has really been helpful for students so they can, again, think ahead or plan backwards. How many days do you have until such an event occurs? Another is the assignment notebook or Google Classroom. So making sure that you are prioritizing checking that Google Classroom every single day. Maybe it's allotting a certain time in the evening to kind of go through your Google Classroom, check an assignment notebook, come up with some type of organizational system that works for your student. Another, as we talked about already, is this task planning or working backwards document, really helpful for specific situations or dilemmas. The time management chart. What we love about this is that this is a clock that is not digital, as most of our students have, whether it's their watches or their phones. This actually shows the space in between time. And so really being able to think backwards and shade in that time is a great visual representation. There's also this organization of time. So we like to call it the 4 T's, either the test, I need to keep this, the treasure, what are you going to keep forever, what are you going to trash, and then what are you maybe going to think about and reflect on because you're not quite ready to get rid of it yet. This is a great tool when we're thinking about organizing lockers. Utilizing some type of graphic organizer like the problem solving map. Also, a self-monitoring checklist. This is fantastic as a self-reflection tool for students to say, where am I? Have I completed all my assignments in my Google Classroom? Did I have all my materials, Chromebook, pencils, paper, or am I still kind of missing those things during my transitions? And another is study strategies. This is something that we talk about in our academic lab class. That's a new class to the district that replaced global awareness this year, where we're really going through these executive functioning skills. But it's this idea of previewing materials ahead of time, so that front loading, attending, make sure that you're grounded and paying attention during class, reviewing, so this is your opportunity to kind of fill in gaps, ask questions, and maybe you do that at home and you come to school with your teacher's support and you kind of go through and review. Next is the study. And there's different modalities of studying. It might be reading, it might be listening, it might be writing copious notes. And then last is testing yourself. So the more you practice these tests, the easier it is to really gain an awareness of what is your go-to study strategy. Well, thank you so much for watching this shortened video of our presentation. If you'd like to learn more about executive functioning, you can contact me at colleen.evans@ccsd21.org, or you can just call me here in the office. I'd be happy to share more materials as well as these graphic organizers with you. Thank you so much.